Welcome back everyone. Let's go ahead and talk about the iPhone 11 Pro Max and see how this phone holds up in 2021. Now first of all, you guys already know this device is completely worth it. It's a great phone. I love it so much I could marry it if I wanted to, but honestly I can't because my iPhone XS is gonna think I'm cheating on or whatever. But this device came out in 2019, which honestly wasn't even that long ago. It was just like not even 2 years ago. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to keep up about this device is that it's really not that old of a device, meaning it's still completely worth it. And I think in a lot of ways, it's even better than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And if you want to pick up this phone and maybe some other phones I'd recommend this year, links will be linked down below. But you can also get it from cheapphones.co. Either or, you're helping support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the front of the 11 Pro Max, you have a beautiful 6.5-inch Super Retina XDR OLED screen, and for sure this is a beautiful panel. This is still one of my favorite panels still from any iPhone. I think it may even be better than the 12 Pro Max. I don't know what it is, just this panel seems better than that one. I don't even know how to describe it, but this panel, even though it has a notch, even though there's no 120Hz, it definitely isn't as good as something like a Galaxy S21 Ultra, but compared to the 12 Pro Max, I think the screen actually looks better. So I think that's a pretty big asset for it, and I think the front of this phone for sure still is a very good thing about it, 100% fact. So in terms of the front panel, I like it and I still think it looks beautiful. You have the lightning port on the bottom, curved sides, no flat sides like the 12 Pro series, but I think it's okay. Again, I really don't care about it too much. And on the back, the frosted glass back, which is so beautiful. Still one of my favorite things about these iPhones, the fact that they have this type of capability, just having that frosted glass back. I'll never understand it. I love it so much. It's just so beautiful. And you also have that triple camera setup up top as well. Now ultimately, I think this, phone still feels very good in the hand. As I mentioned before, it doesn't feel cheap. You have wireless charging, IP certification, the whole 9 yards. And I think if you're going to be using a phone for any type of purposes ever, this phone is going to be able to handle everything you throw at it in terms of a body standpoint. And I don't think this thing's going to be feeling old anytime soon. So in terms of the body standpoint, 100% fact, this phone completely holds up for sure. Now moving on to the cameras, because we have to hit on them. Like I said before, the iPhone 11 Pro Max on the back has that triple camera setup. A 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel telephoto, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor as well. And as I stated before, man, compare this phone to the 12 Pro Max. If the 12 Pro Max is supposed to be the best iPhone camera right now, this iPhone camera is almost exactly the same thing as that device. I don't care what Apple tells you, maybe that camera is a little bit better in quality or whatever, but day-to-day use, you're really not going to notice it. I've done 30,000 comparisons between this device and so many other devices that have came out, and I don't see that big of a difference. This phone still completely holds up. It's still a beautiful phone, and as I mentioned before, anything you're going to throw at it, it's going to be able to handle every single thing for sure. 4K at 60, you have that triple camera setup, so you have that wide telephoto ultra wide. It's really not going to be any different than something like a Galaxy S20 Ultra in terms of just a capability standpoint. Of course you can't zoom in as much or anything like that, but in terms of real day use, in my sense, for the things that I do on an everyday basis, like Snapchatting people and filming TikToks and whatever, I'm going to be perfectly fine. I'm not complaining too much. But for the average person, I don't think they're going to expect too much either, to be completely honest. The quality is great. The front camera on this thing with 4K at 60 is tremendous still too. And again, it's just W after W on this device. It is a very good feeling phone. The cameras still look very good. And I will tell you, for the next 3-4 years, this camera is still going to be top tier. Until 4K 60 ends up being the end all be all, you have to have 4K at 30 at least, I think you're going to be okay with this camera for sure. And that's not going to happen for another 4 to 5 years. So for sure, this camera in 2021 still completely holds up. You can pick up this phone in 2030 and still probably have a decent camera lens on it. So in terms of that, the camera setup, 100% fact, I love this camera a lot. So in terms of camera, that pretty much covers it up. Now moving on to, I think, the best thing about this phone, hands down, the software and the battery life. This in and of itself, I'm so passionate about it. This is the #1 thing I would recommend people to look at when they buy this iPhone. First of all, software wise, this phone kills it in that sense. I mean, you can pick up this phone now, you can pick up this phone next year, even the year after, and you are still going to be getting a phone that's still going to be getting quite a bit of software updates. You can pick up this phone today, it's going to last you for many years. You can pick up this phone 2 years from now, and it's still going to last you for a long time. And on top of that, if you're not familiar with iPhone updates, the same day the flagship of that year gets an update is the same day this thing's going to get an update, as long as they're supported. On a lot of my Samsungs and a lot of some other devices I own too, the same day that the top tier iPhone or top tier, Samsung gets it isn't necessarily the same time that the last supported Samsung gets the update either. You look at the Android 11 updates, they're so sporadic and so spread out that it's so annoying. With iPhones, you know that the updates are coming out on time every single time for all devices. And I love that so much, and that's something that I really do appreciate about the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So even though it's only one generation behind, even when this thing is 4 or 5 generations behind, as long as it's still supported, you are going to be getting software support for a very long time. All those cool updates and features that are coming out for these next generations of software, we're going to get it on these phones too, which is amazing. So software-wise, this phone is definitely a killer at. But on top of that, the battery life is just the craziest thing about this phone. You have a 3,969 mAh battery, and this is, I still think, the biggest battery size on any iPhone. This iPhone has the biggest battery size, keep that in mind. And on top of that, the battery life on this phone is insane. I've been able to use this phone for an insanely long amount of time, like days and days on end. Even my iPhone 12 Pro wasn't even that bad. My iPhone 11 Pro had great battery life, and this 11 Pro Max was definitely that on the next level. And as I said before, this is the #1 reason why I would recommend people to buy an iPhone 11 Pro Max is the software experience and the battery life as well. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of, I think, the best reason to pick up the iPhone 11 Pro Max in 2021. Now ending it off with the performance. This device, as I mentioned before, has a very current chipset, an Apple A13 Bionic with 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I'll be honest, the RAM management I think is great, but compared to something like the 12 Pro Max, it may not be as good as it because that one has, 2 more gigs of RAM. But I still think at the end of the day, this device has a killer performance, for anything you're going to throw at it. First of all, as I always state, for basic things, calling people, messages, multitasking between apps, you're going to be perfectly fine for a basic level standpoint. This is like a no-brainer. For mid-tier apps as well, kills it at. If you're doing like what I do, like film Snapchats or TikToks or YouTube videos and you need stuff like that, not only does this thing have a great camera, but this thing has a strong enough chipset that if you want to edit those photos, edit those videos, in terms of a small scale, maybe 1080p stuff, you're going to kill it. And like this thing is going to be able to handle it perfectly fine. But even for those top tier tasks that you're going to do from a device, things like, 4K at 60 editing on iMovie or LumaFusion, or you're going to do some really crazy high-end, gaming stuff, or even like cloud gaming, whatever you need to do, this device is going to be able to handle it. It's going to give you very good graphics. It's not going to be too glitchy. And I think that's where this phone kills it at. The performance is amazing. I don't really have too much to complain about there. Maybe the only slight thing that's still the problem with a lot of other iPhones is the overheating aspect. Sometimes if you're going to go and do some maybe heavier intensive things, I noticed this on my iPhone 11 Pro 2, you're gonna run into some overheating issues. And it's not like every iPhone has this issue, but almost every single iPhone that I've tested has had some sort of issue like this. So that's a pretty big thing about it, so keep that in mind. And I think in terms of that, the performance gets a thumbs up from me. It's a great performing chipset for sure. Now, to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, should you go and buy an iPhone 11 Pro Max in 2021? Absolutely yes. This device is still completely worth it, even though it's almost 2 years old. It's not an old device. It has so much going for it. It's a beautiful device. It has so much character in it. And I just don't know that much stuff to hate on it. Like, it's a beautiful phone no matter what I did with it. It handled everything I threw at it. Now, some of the highlights, first of all, beautiful screen still on the front. It's almost the same thing, if not better, than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. You have a beautiful front-facing camera. The feeling of this phone in the hand feels so extremely powerful. Frosted glass back on this device too, which is beautiful. Triple camera setup on this phone on the back, which is still arguably one of the best iPhone cameras. Like, you can't get much better than this, to be honest, unless you want to go for like the S21 Ultra with 8K. Other than that, this phone's camera on the back is ginormous. It's beautiful for sure. The software lifecycle on this phone, you can pick up this phone today or next year or 2 years from now, and you'll still be getting software support for probably a year or two more, which is insane. Like, this phone is going to be lasting for an insanely long amount of time. You have a crazy big battery life in this thing, the biggest battery on any iPhone, and this thing's going to last you for a very long time on a single charge. You could probably get days and days on end, if you kind of use it a little bit here and there, but it's going to be lasting you for a very long time in terms of that standpoint as well. On top of that, performance on this phone is crazy too. I've already done speed comparisons between this device and my iPhone 12 Pro Max and my iPhone 11 and all these other devices, and this phone is still a very good performing phone. There's just not that much to just complain about it. Like I said, the only thing I really even complained about it was the overheating issue. Sometimes it happened. Other than that, there's just not that much to complain about when you look at the other iPhones. I wish this thing maybe had Touch ID. I wish it had a 120Hz display, but since these newer iPhones also don't have it, I just can't complain. There's really not that much to complain about here. So I will tell you the 11 Pro Max is a no-brainer. If you have it, keep it. Do not upgrade. If you currently are looking for another iPhone to buy, I always recommend the 11 Pro Max. I think this device is just a no-brainer and is such a good phone still in 2021. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.